Democrats, according to a new NBC News poll, are up 8 points on the generic ballot. This is roughly where they were around the 2018 midterms when they won 40 seats and seized control of the House. Does this mean that they're going to see the Democrats are going to take the House? No. It means that as of today, in this specific poll, they are up 8 points on the generic.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchable News. It's Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, we are 1 year out from the midterm elections. We've got the details on where the polls stand and what that could mean for the government shutdown. Number two, an RJC dispatch from Andrew Desiderio out in Las Vegas. And number three, the latest in the Texas Senate GOP primary race. All right, Jake, let's get to it. We are leading Punchable News AM with a look at how we are on day 34 of the government shutdown. Still no resolution in sight, although there has been some movement, which we will discuss. The House has not been in session for 45 days. But today, as I mentioned, it is 1 year out from the 2026 midterms, and the polls are something that it's an important kind of time to look at them.
Polls are polls, and you got to take them for what they're worth, which is
a snapshot in time.
Imperfect snapshots in time. And we'll just caveat it with that. Democrats, according to a new NBC News poll, are up 8 points on the generic ballot. This is roughly where they were around the 2018 midterms when they won 40 seats and seized control of the House. Does this mean that they're going to see the Democrats are going to take the House? No. It means that as of today, in this specific poll, they are up 8 points on the generic. That's what it means. It's just you take it for what you want. If you're a Republican, you're going to say the poll is garbage and it's too far out from the midterms. And if you're a Democrat, you're going to say we're going to win the House. Trump's approval, which is, I'll be honest with you, ahead of a midterm, it's a big deal. But 41% of Americans approve of Trump's handling of the presidency. Among independents, 30% approve, 69% disapprove. So if you assume the midterm, and I'm not assuming this, especially with how many seats Republicans think they'll pick up in redistricting, if you assume that the approval rating is a marker for how Republicans are going to do, that's not great for you. But you know, again, if you're working the map like Republicans are, we'll see how much it matters. Here is something that I do think matters because this is happening right now. And especially interesting for Mike Johnson and John Thune. 45% of Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown. 33% blame Democrats. Again, snapshot in time, Republicans have polls that say otherwise. So let's talk about that for a second, Anna, and we could then move on to some other reporting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, both sides are either going to say that this is the poll to watch, or they're going to discount it as saying, this was a bad poll or why it's an outlier. But I do think, as much as both sides say that, they are looking for any indication right now, right, about how they're doing, what their standing with the American public is. There's a lot happening. I also think the economy is something that is of concern, right? In a lot of recent polls, this isn't just the NBC poll, but the issue that carried Trump back to the White House. Right now, it's 37.62%. That is a serious problem for Republicans, right? They need to be winning on the economy in order to do well in this midterm. And I do think the other point that you make, which is important, which is, do these kind of recent poll numbers that have Republicans being blamed for the shutdown, does that change or help Democrats as they go into yet another week of negotiations where leadership and the president still aren't meeting? But there has been more agitation. It feels like there's been movement, certainly among rank and file senators who are saying we got to find a pathway out of this.
Yeah, and the point you just made is important because if you are looking at other events this week and whether they'll lead to a deal, you're going to look at the New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial races, and you're going to say if Democrats, depending on who wins, this could also impact the shutdown. And I've had people say, well, it's an 80% chance the government's going to open this week. I've seen that chat on X and other places. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know the answer to that. And I'll bring up 2 points. The election, so if Democrats win both these gubernatorial races, which they should, they're going to say, well, their position is validated. And Republicans, if New Jersey's close and certainly if the Republicans win, they're going to say their position is validated, when in reality, not a huge correlation between the shutdown and these races, I don't think. Again, there are bipartisan spending talks that continued over the weekend. I will say once again, this is not a shutdown about spending levels. This is a shutdown about healthcare, on which there's been no resolution, really. And President Donald Trump said on 60 Minutes yesterday, if Democrats vote to reopen the government, we should fix healthcare. And he said we could fix it with the Democrats. All they have to do is let the country open and we'll fix it. Again, very little movement. The Democrats say we need a healthcare deal while the government's closed. Republicans say we need to open the government before we have a spending deal. But I will just say the coverage is getting much worse. And Anna, let's talk about one more thing here, which is filibuster. Trump is continuing on his crusade over the filibuster, on breaking that 60-vote threshold. As predictable as the day is long, I'd say that. And no sign from Republicans on caving on this. John Thune is reiterating that he is not interested in doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's kind of two interesting points. I do think, yes, this is a shutdown around healthcare. Of course, that's what Democrats have been hammering. November 1st was the key deadline. We've obviously moved past that. You've got SNAP benefits. You started to see some real impact at airports and expect to see more of that. You could see this spending option, this smaller package, as one of the off-ramps to say, like, okay, what could we get from there? We were able to negotiate on these things.
Could soften the ground, right?
It softens the blow of having to reopen and not have a single thing go in Democrats' direction, right? I think there's some acknowledgement, certainly by a lot of people, that they understand they're not going to get everything from the one big beautiful bill on Medicaid overturned, right? They aren't going to get everything they want when it comes to these things, and that's just the reality of the matter. I think the bigger thing is, if this does get reopened, what are we looking? I mean, that's going to be a whole other set of negotiations about what's the next CR look like? How long is it? Is it, I mean, this is going to be this kind of the political dance becomes complicated. It's not like, oh, they reopen the government and we're smooth sailing here, Jake, which I think is important. I think like everybody's just focused on that, obviously, because we are in shutdown. But the next couple of plays here are also going to be really, really important.
Correct. This is my obsession. Once the government's open, they got to figure out fiscal 26 spending. That is very, very difficult. They're going to spend time on healthcare. That's going to be very difficult. Actually, that's going to be incredibly difficult if Trump really wants to do a healthcare deal. I don't know that he actually does, and I don't know that Republicans are going to back him up on that. We will see. I think that becomes extremely, extremely difficult. And what you said is true. Like, maybe a spending deal softens the blow for, reopening the government. But again, the point remains, one side is going to have to fold, right? So what is that off-ramp going to look like, and how is it going to feel for Democrats or Republicans?
All right, Jake, let's go to the number 2 story of the morning. Our very own Andrew Desiderio was on the ground in Las Vegas over the weekend at the Republican Jewish Coalition Summit. Interesting to see, and the dynamics that Andrew lays out of we've speak so much about kind of the fighting between Republicans and Democrats and the infighting of Democrats trying to find a way forward. But this item really looks at how Republicans aren't all aligned, and how you see this kind of Tucker Carlson versus others in the Republican Party, particularly when it comes to anti-Semitism, as a big flashpoint here.
There is huge. Let me try to keep my emotions in check here as a Jewish person. There's a big problem on the far right when it comes to anti-Semitism. You're seeing that right now. I mean, Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes, and the point that Ted Cruz made here in what Andrew dubs a fiery speech in Las Vegas is that too many Republicans won't confront right-wing anti-Semitism because they're terrified of upsetting people with really big megaphones. And I will say, it's kind of interesting that this Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes situation happened right before the RJC, which is kind of one of the biggest quote-unquote cattle calls. Although, could there be a cattle call if there's no presidential election? I guess there could be, for Republicans in America. And Speaker Mike Johnson, was supposed to attend. He did not because of the shutdown, but he zoomed in to the event in Las Vegas. But Andrew has a really just a lot of names, a lot of interviews he conducted with members of Congress, senators, candidates in Las Vegas. We'll have coverage actually throughout the rest of the day. Andrew has a bunch of more reporting that he's gonna unveil as the day goes on here.
do think one thing that's important is, as much as they kind of were united, you had a bunch of Republican senators, members of Congress, denouncing kind of anti-Semitism on the far right. They also are really aligned, and I think it's important because the name we are going to be talking about a lot going into the 26th midterm by Republicans is Zoran Mamdani. Yeah, I mean, he is expected to cruise to become the next mayor of New York City. And as much as Republicans were saying there's an issue here on the far right, they also said it's a much bigger problem on the left, pointing to Mamdani, a Muslim and Democratic socialist, as the mayor of New York City. Expect to see that on a lot of campaign ads.
Yes. And Republicans are going to use Mamdani as a foil in the 26 midterms. There's no question about that. How much of the mayor of New York will play into races across the country? I don't know the answer to that. This isn't like, just let me, on the political dynamic here. Okay, fine. Maybe it's a bigger problem on the left. Maybe it's a bigger problem on the right. It's a problem in both places, right? So
Yep.
it would be great if it was a problem in no place. It would be great if there wasn't, this dynamic anywhere in American politics. But anyway, we're not going to solve that this morning on this podcast.
All right, let's move on to the number 3 story of the morning. John Bresnahan has an item this morning on Representative Wesley Hunt's entry into the Texas Republican primary and how it has embroiled him in a bitter fight with incumbent Senator John Cornyn. The tit for tat and kind of attacking each other is on full display in this item as John goes deep on Wesley Hunt's voting record as well as committee attendance. And Cornyn's campaign is, kind of out front and center trying to point out what they see as a problematic kind of history in Congress.
Yes, what they're trying to say is that Wesley Hunt doesn't show up to work, which is a vast oversimplification of what is true and also what their message is, to be honest with you. But Wesley Hunt is the third leg in this 3-legged stool of a race between John Cornyn, Ken Paxton, and Wesley Hunt. He is a second-term member of the House Republican Conference. He has thrown a big wrench in this race. And what Cornyn's trying to do is paint him as somebody who's unreliable and who is not prepared for the Senate. And they're trying to say his committee record, his committee attendance is spotty, his floor record is spotty. And Team Hunt is suggesting that, listen, it's not as bad as Cornyn as people say it is. And also, he just had a child in Texas, in where he's from. He represents the Houston area. They put out a video on the difficult birth of their son in 2023. But the point is this. These three, Paxton, Cornyn, and Hunt, are going to be going after each other for the next several months. This race is almost certain to go into a runoff, which is going to be real expensive, really divisive, and the White House is not weighed in. If the White House weighed in, by the way, they would avoid a lot of this because whoever the White House endorsed would have a huge leg up.
All right, Jake, thanks so much. We are going to end it there. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, please share it on social media. Tell your friends it's the best way to find out about us. And of course, you can go deeper on all these issues and more by going to punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.